This is the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast, where we spread awareness for men's mental health and spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify. New episodes drop weekly.
I just pray tonight, Lord, that you will bless us, bless this episode, and I pray we can reach those out there that are just hurting, Lord, that need to find purpose, especially those from the first responder world. They're dealing with trauma and just brokenness and struggling with identity. I pray tonight I can spread your gospel, reach those that don't know you, and help those that are in need. Thank you again for Kevin. Thank you for this platform. Pray you bless Kevin and his family. Watch over us. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Welcome back to the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Steve, and tonight I am joined by a special guest and friend of mine, and I'm going to do the intro a little different tonight. So back in April, I flew to New Jersey. I'm based out of the Nashville area. I did my first in-studio podcast as a guest with Kevin Donaldson from the Suffering Podcast. And it was a wild experience for me to go from being a new podcaster for a guy that does remote podcasting to actually go to a full-fledged studio, to travel and be interviewed by a pro. So my guest tonight is Kevin Donaldson. He's a former police officer. He's an advocate for mental health. He's the host of the Suffering Podcast, and he's joining me tonight. Kevin, this is awesome, brother. Thank you so much for joining the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast.
Man, you make me sound so important, dude. You know, listen, so the opening prayer, okay, I love the opening prayer idea. I really actually love that stuff. But I've actually given sermons. I've been up on the pulpit. I've given sermons. And man, praying over people, when people ask you to pray over them, it's one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my entire life. You're like, rub-a-dub-dub, thanks for the grub. You're doing something stupid that you heard once before. But man, that is... I don't know how you do that. So you may think my intros are smooth, but the prayer you had was ultra smooth. So great job on that.
Thank you very much. And I'll just share this with you. So when I first started, I really held back on doing that because I didn't know how people would take it. I didn't know, I didn't feel like I was the right kind of guy to do it. And through a lot of just self-reflection and prayer, I was like, who cares? Just do it. If it rubs somebody the wrong way, that means you're doing the right thing. Because I really feel compelled to spread the gospel, even though I'm not like the church guy or up in a pulpit. So, and I was telling you this off air in the intro, I try to calm myself down and dude, I know you and I still got nervous. So praying kind of like brings everything down a little bit. And I'm going to share this real quick. My son taught me into a kitten and he's 3 months old and I'm corner of my eye. I've got him blocked off where he can't go upstairs, but I can see him. So if we hear a big crash, it's him. And guess what his name is? Kevin. That's the name the shelter gave him, and we couldn't settle on a name, so we stuck with Kevin.
You know what? I did the same thing with my dog. When I got my dog, they named it Mandy, and I looked at my dog sitting there with the rest of his brothers and sisters, and I'm like, that's a Mandy. And then the Barry Manilow song keeps playing in my head, and so
that's funny.
We're like, I can't change the dog's name now.
That's awesome.
But yeah, getting back to the prayer for a second, I remember my wife's father died. My wife's father was retired West Orange, New Jersey police officer. And he dropped right in his house and we were over there and there he is laying on the ground. And my wife goes, could you say a prayer? And I go, oh my God. Like that was the worst experience of my life because my wife just lost her father and now I gotta perform I gotta give this prayer to try to make this guy's soul go to heaven.
That's a lot of pressure, man.
Oh,
that's a lot of pressure.
I wanted to tell her in that moment, yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. I'm not your guy. I'm not your guy.
Well, Kevin, man, I start every episode kind of the same way. And for those that don't really know you that well, I want to start from the beginning. Where did you grow up, man? And growing up and going to school was religion a part of your family's kind of tradition and stuff like that?
We, my family was, I was raised Lutheran in the Atlantic City area, and I consider us, the term I like to use is CEO religious. Okay. Christmas and Easter only.
Gotcha. Okay.
Not religious, but they somehow thought it was going to be, it should be part of our life, even though there was no feeling, but I got tied into my faith on my own. My parents didn't lead me there. I found it interesting more than anything else. The problem was it was real hollow. There was nothing behind it. And listen, I'm a little bit of a smart ass. So I'm inquisitive. As a kid, I was super inquisitive. And I remember I'm sitting there and I'm going through, Lutherans get confirmed into the church when they're 13. And I'm sitting there and I'm talking to the pastor. His name was Pastor Blitch, right? Imagine growing up with a name like Blitch. First of all, that guy got shoved in lockers. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah, no doubt.
But I remember asking a question. He's going through scripture, and I said, okay, so you got Jesus, and Jesus was born to die for our sins, right? And he's like, yeah. I was like, okay. And the person who facilitated his death was Judas, arguably one of the greatest villains throughout history. And Judas facilitated Jesus's destiny. So wouldn't that make Judas one of the biggest heroes of the Bible?
Ooh.
And you might have thought I told him to go F his mother. Like it did not. And I wasn't doing it. It was actually a genuine question that I had,
Yeah.
and it changed the perspective on it. And I still to this day think Judas was in on it. Like I do think I firmly, it's one of the unpopular beliefs I had about Christianity. I believe Judas was the strongest of the disciples, and he was the only one that was strong enough to fulfill that. But even that, even after he did it, and I do believe he was led to do that stuff. I think the pressure and the guilt was too much for him to take, and that's why he hung himself.
Yeah.
It's a very unpopular opinion, but it's just my opinion. It's my theological study of the gospel.
There's so much to break down, and I mean, I had a gentleman on last night, and he brought up the theory that he thought Satan was actually a dragon in the Garden of Eden and not a snake, and that he swam up in the garden. And I've never heard that before, and it blew my mind. But the way he described everything made sense, and I was like, wow, I need to really look into that. So I think that's part of the process is, as individuals, we're supposed to ask questions and to do our own studying, not just go to a church and, show up and check a box and then go home. Like, we're supposed to actually study and ask questions. And I think it's how you learn, that's how you grow, just like anything else in life.
People will bastardize the Bible, right? First of all, when everybody thinks Eve ate the forbidden fruit? Well, what did she eat? Ask anybody what she ate. Well, she ate an apple.
Yeah.
Never once does it say an apple. Another one of my favorite ones is, God will not give you any more than you can handle. Well, that's BS, man. God gives you stuff you can't handle all the time. And the reason he gives you stuff you can't handle all the time, because he wants you to give it up to him. I can't handle this, God. Help me.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of that stuff. But people use that. God's not going to give you anything you can handle. Well, that's a lie. Gives you stuff you're not going to handle all the time.
Yeah. It's part of it. I mean, it's part of, you got to suffer. Well, growing up like that, did you feel like you had to hold like a certain standard as a young adult or a teenager, like in school, or did you kind of say, "Man, I'm good. I know who God is. I'm going to kind of do my thing and go from there"?
Oh, dude, I was a halfway guy all the time,
Mm.
right? So I said, God, you can have this half of me, but this half of me is going to do what I want to do. I'm going to chase women. I'm going to drink underage. I'm going to do drugs. I'm going to steal. But, on Sundays, you can have that half of me, right?
Yeah.
So I was a big halfway guy. And what I realized recently, I'm going to say within the last 7-8 years, is how fragile this quote unquote faith that I had. It was more ritual than it was feeling.
Yeah. I can relate to that.
It was something that I thought I should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go to hell. I mean, you and I talked about this on my show.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to hell, so I'm going to go do this. But he can have half of me. He just can't have all of me.
Yeah.
So I was a little, forgive my French here, but I was a little asshole as a kid. All right. I grew up in a very, very toxic household, very abusive household. So I found there was unhealthy forms of outlets. I was a bully in school. I was a thief when I was a teenager. I just did awful, rotten things, because when you have no power at home, you have no peace. To bring it home to your podcast name.
There you go.
You had no power at home, so I'm going to exert power over somebody that I see that's less than me. And maybe that'll make me feel a little bit better. And for a short time it does, but it's not sustainable. Okay? Because what you're doing is you as you start to mentally mature, you realize I'm just perpetuating the behavior that I hate. I'm becoming what I hate. And that's what I did. And that's I bullied this poor kid so bad that after he left school, it took me 30 years to track him down, to apologize to him, to make amends.
Wow.
It took me 30 years.
Wow.
But, my faith was just so fragile that, one little one little pop in my life, and my faith just fell apart.
I think that's pretty common though, man, especially growing up when you're in a ritualistic type environment in a church. You kind of feel like, yeah, I'll go to church, but I still want to do what the other kids are doing, or I want to do what the world's doing. 'Cause, I mean, it's hard. And they say, I heard a stat a couple years ago that like 70% of kids that grow up in a youth group in church never come back to church. And I totally understand that because it's
Where
an unrealistic type of standard I think that's set on kids.
when the best statistic that I heard is when the parents, specifically the father,
Mhm.
specifically a child's father is seen being active in church and really giving his life over to Christ, it's something like in the high 90s that that kid will continue going to church. The
Hmm.
mother is like 50, 60%. I'm not crapping on mothers,
No,
but
no.
it's not as strong as a father figure. They're the
Yeah.
leader of the house. And I watched this in real time with my two boys. I was going to church for I rediscovered my faith in 2021, and I was going to church religiously every week, and I really just I felt it, like it filled me up. And then one day my oldest son goes, "Hey dad, I would always ask him, but I wouldn't push him into it. I'd say, hey guys, you want to come to church? No, okay, that's fine." And I go to church. One day my oldest comes to me and says, he's about 12 years old at the time, and he says, "Hey dad, you going to church on Sunday?" I said, "Of course." And he goes, "You mind if I come with you?" I was like, "That would be awesome." And it was our thing for like 6 months. And I would ask my youngest if he wanted to come, and my youngest would say the same thing, until one day he goes, "Hey dad, you going to church?" Same thing, same exact thing. And now me and my boys, that's like, we walk into church, the three of us, as a family.
That's awesome, man.
They know it's the Donaldsons are coming in.
That's awesome.
And my youngest one especially is so tied into his faith. He does a TikTok every single night where
Mm.
he'll take a verse from the Bible and he'll interpret it through a 13-year-old's eyes.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, Kevin's jumping up here. Don't wait, dude.
Stop it, Kevin.
Well, do you feel comfortable unpacking maybe some of that toxicity that you experienced in childhood that kind of drove you to where we are today? Because I know we all have some form of childhood trauma. You and I have talked about this, off camera when I was up there, but were there certain events that kind of molded you to kind of choose the direction? Because let's be honest, man. I mean, you're in law enforcement, you've been through a lot. We're going to get into that later. But I think a certain type of individual is drawn to that profession, especially someone that experienced a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, and a lot of trauma. Because it's almost like that hero complex. You want to go help other people because of what happened to you. And correct me if I'm wrong, you've got more knowledge on that than I do, but that's kinda how I see it.
So believe it or not, publicly, and I'll give this to you, is publicly I don't, on air, on camera, I normally do not speak about too much about the abuse that I suffered at home. I'll talk about it in the periphery, but I'll never really get specific.
Mhm.
Oddly enough, I tour the country with my speaking partner, Sherry Alsip, and we teach trauma informed training and speak at conferences. And we're police departments from Hawaii to Alaska and everywhere in between. Where I do talk about the abuse that I suffered, but that and law enforcement go hand in hand. So, first, let me lay the groundwork this way. There's a profile of a cop, and it's a very common profile of a cop. They were born in chaos, they live in chaos, can't live without chaos, and create chaos when chaos isn't present. And usually they're involved in some sort of contact sport, and but that makes them really great cops. It makes them really horrible partners, like husbands and spouses, but it makes them great cops. Because think about an abusive household, what it teaches you. If you really grew up in an abusive household, you know when to keep your mouth shut, you know how to take the temperature of a room.
Mhm.
You know when to go hide, when to not be seen. You know when to step forward. Like, you know how to take a punch. All of these things. And unpacking my trauma, my problem is the majority of my trauma I did not start remembering till I hit about 42, 43.
Mm.
And when you've buried stuff, I left my house when I was 17.
Okay.
When you bury stuff for that long, you start to doubt whether there's any reality involved in it.
Mhm.
So you're like, nah, it didn't happen. But then you start remembering specifics. And the way I describe it best is it's like coming in on an airplane, and you know how you're going through the clouds, right? And every once in a while, the clouds will open up and you can see for miles and miles and miles. And then it'll fog back up. And then
Mhm.
sometimes there's a little translucent thing. You can see part of it, but you can't see all of it. Well, that's what a lot of my trauma is. The physical trauma I remember wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And physical trauma, hey, listen, it really doesn't bother me all that much. I got punched, I got beat, I was the kid who got yelled at for striking out in baseball. If I had a bad football game, if I did something wrong, I would get beat. And that stuff's okay. The mental and the emotional abuse was a little tougher to take. I got called by my father the laziest white man alive.
Wow.
I grew up in an incredibly racist household. So when I'm younger, and you hear that when you're younger, you're like, oh, okay, anybody who's not white must be really lazy.
Mm.
It wasn't until I went away to college that my perspective changed. And I'm like, you start seeing one thing that becomes hypocrisy. Kevin's screwing up again. Kevin's going to be part of the show.
I lost him. I don't know where he went.
It's either me talking about myself in the third person or talking about the kitten. But you start you just start seeing bits and pieces of all this stuff, and as it starts coming back, the nightmares come in and all that stuff. So the emotional abuse was actually worse. That laziest white man alive, that telling I was never going to amount to anything, that I was less than, that I was overweight as a kid, that I was fat. It does some serious damage to you. I remember having suicidal ideations as young as 7 or 8 years old.
Oh man, I'm sorry. Man.
Yeah, it's you don't want to be there. You don't want to have any part of this stuff. The worst part, the part that I buried so deep, is there was sexual abuse in there. There was a lot of sexual abuse by multiple people, which I don't recommend because it's not fun. And the more you realize it, you don't remember specifics as far as what you saw. You remember smells, you remember feelings, you remember something that you touched, because that's the way our brain works, right? As soon as you experience that type of trauma, you bury it in a place where your body sort of goes into survival mode. It gets stored in your amygdala, and once so you'll remember the one sense that's the most unreliable is your eyes. For this day, I'll give you an example. When I married my wife, we moved into our house, we bought a house together, and my wife started cleaning the floor with Murphy's oil soap. I don't know if you ever smelled Murphy's oil soap. It has a really distinct smell.
Yeah, it does.
Most people use it to clean up pet messes and stuff like that. Well, my wife bought this, and I didn't think anything of it, and she started cleaning with it, and the smell hit me. I took the jug away from her, and I threw it out, and I said, don't ever bring that in here again.
Wow.
Because Murphy's oil soap is what my mother used to clean up a mess with after my father sexually assaulted me.
Oh man.
And I can describe the bedroom, wooden, like a faux wooden headboard, and the house I grew up in had very poor ventilation in the attic, so there was mold marks around the side, if you've ever seen that. Mirror, a chest, like a Hope chest mirror, and then there was we didn't have air conditioning, so there was a fan on top of the desk that blew air from the outside. And I can remember all that stuff. I can remember the musty smell in there. But specifics, there's very few specifics. As time moves on, more specifics are coming out, but there's very few specifics that come out when I'm remembering all those things. So yeah, that's a Reader's Digest version without getting too graphic of what I went through. So it hardened me. It hardened me as a teenager.
I'm sure.
I took it out on everybody and everything, and constantly looking for things to make me feel better. I couldn't steal enough to make me feel better. I couldn't drink enough to make me feel better. I couldn't do enough drugs to make me feel better. But again, I'm that halfway guy, so I still went to church on Sunday.
Yeah.
So when I was just good enough to play football in college. Was just smart enough to go to college. So when I went to college, I picked a college that was the furthest one away that accepted me, in North Jersey. And I was 2.5 hours away. I knew I wasn't coming home anymore, and I knew this was going to be it. So I went there, and I decided, okay, right here, I'm going to reinvent myself. I'm going to become the person that I want to be. I went into college for theological studies, and then here speaks to the fragility of my faith. I'm in a class with a guy named Dr. John Becker, who is a ex-Jesuit priest. He fell in love with a nun,
Hmm.
and we're going through the book, the Bible. We're going through the Bible as literature.
Okay.
So you're reading the Bible as a book. You're not reading it as scripture. You're reading it as a book.
Yeah.
And we're deep into Samuel's 1 and 2. And
Okay.
I'm a huge King David guy. I love the story of King David, but I'm reading this portion of it, and in a way I've never read it before, and I'm like, wow, this is such a violent book. There is no way I can get behind a religion that's this violent.
Mm.
And like a switch flipped, and my faith was gone.
Wow.
Gone. You know, there's I can tell you the exact story. It's when Saul's trying to kill David,
Yeah.
and he says, "You got to go out and kill. I need proof that you killed 100 Philistines, and I need their foreskins. That's
Yeah.
going to be the proof." Now, here's the problem: when you take a man's foreskin, you're not just taking a foreskin; you're chopping the whole thing off.
Mm-hmm.
And David walks into the square with a cart full, 1,000 foreskins, Philistine foreskins, and all the women start shouting, "Egod the Philistine is dead," because apparently he was impressive. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, this is awful. This is absolutely awful. Oddly enough, you know, there's that new show that's on Amazon called House of David,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm watching it with my son. And that particular scene was depicted in season 2.
Okay.
And I'm like, and it just dawned on me. I'm like, this is where I lost my faith. And here I
Wow.
have this new faith, and I'm looking at it a little bit different.
It's interesting that that's what shifted you and not a lot of people experience they feel like they're not worthy of God, or they feel like they can't hold the standard, or then you kind of wash over with Satan and the interpretation. A lot of people say, well, why would God create Satan? Why would he create evil? So I'm not going to worship him because you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. It's interesting that's kind of what tipped you.
Well,
Um
it's supposed to be good, right? God is supposed to be good, and here I am reading about a God who is vengeful.
yeah.
God smites people. God, kills like complete cities
Mhm.
under His name, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awful.
Yeah.
So my faith was gone, and I lived my life that way for the better part of 25 years, having no faith, not even sure if I believed in God. And if I did, I certainly wasn't going to deal with it. My theory was I'm going to try to be as good a person as I can, and the rest will take care of itself.
Mm.
But that's not really what I was doing. I really wasn't being a good person. And I certainly wasn't given gratitude where gratitude was warranted. So, I walked around for 25 years just wandering in the desert like Moses, and I couldn't find my way.
But here's the thing, though, I think that people miss this point. Guys with a testimony like yours, that now you follow Christ and you live for Christ, that testimony is way more powerful than if you would have stayed the course and stayed in, that direction or the trajectory of following Christ your whole life, because you're not going to resonate with people that don't feel worthy of him. That's how I see it, man.
Well, God. So when God's going to crown you, okay, this is kind of the story of my life. When God went to go, He was going to crown King David. Did He give David a crown right away? No,
Mm-mm.
He gave David a lion. He
Yeah.
gave David Goliath. He
Yep.
gave David Bathsheba. He had to kill his own son. He gave him, assassination plots. He gave him all this pain and all this suffering. Joseph had to rot on a floor
Yeah.
in prison. Moses had to wander the desert. He gives these people who He's going to crown. He has to give them. So people will hear my full story of abuse, and I do talk about it. But people will hear that stuff and they're like, going through what you went through, how the hell do you believe in God?
Hmm.
And I said, the fact that it's there shows me that there must be. And here's
Yeah.
the theory behind it. You can't have a piece of paper with just a front. You have to have a back. There's always a back to the piece of paper. It's the yin and yang symbol, right?
Hmm.
There's a balance of good and evil. And if one side becomes too lopsided, you start to change your perspective. But if there is bad in this world, and we all know that there's bad in this world, by default, there must be good. Because if good is all you knew, That is just what it is,
Yeah.
right? That is just what it is. You have to know bad before you truly can know good. So when God is gonna crown you, he's gonna give you the worst pain possible. And then you're gonna when you finally get that crown, you're gonna be like, "Oh, okay. I went through all this stuff because there was deficiencies in my personality that I had to work on and I had to fill in order to go to where I wanna go."
And I think too that that's a really good way to put it. And I think that's really how you can surrender your life to him because you realize I can't do this on my own. I'm not in control of everything. I have to submit and follow him in order to get through these trials or these tribulations or to overcome trauma, whatever you want to like, for me, it was alcohol. The only way I stayed sober was because of Christ. It wasn't therapy. It wasn't AA. It wasn't a book. I mean, it was because I wanted to be a man of faith for my kids and for myself. And at the time, my wife. And when all those things were removed, all I had left was God. There was no treatment program that was going to keep me because I'm hard headed. I want to do things my own way and I'm unconventional. So I said, I'm going to lock in on Jesus and I'm going to do this. And so when all the other stuff fell apart, I was like, God, I can't do this. I need your help. And that was the first time at 42 years old I ever said those words to God. And I was baptized at 13, grew up in the church. I knew who he was, but I never said that to him. Never put him in anything. I was like, no, I got this. I'm a survivor. I have my own childhood trauma. I was like, fuck it. I can do this. I don't need any help. And I still to this day, Kevin, like I still will get zeroed in with people like don't meet my expectations. I'll be like, all right, I can do this. I got this. And I still talk to God, but I know at the end of the day, I can make things happen if I put my mind to it and do the work. But that's not the healthiest thing to do. But I've learned that through the years that sometimes you just gotta stay the course and do it. If you want to get it done, push forward.
Well, faith takes work, right?
It does. It does. Yeah.
You know, faith takes work. Faith isn't easy. If it was easy, everybody would have it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you 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 have to realize that things aren't happening to you; they're happening for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that comes from a mentality that a lot of people have. A lot of people get stuck in the victim mentality, right? It's like,
Yeah.
why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? And when your perspective shifts and you're saying, why is this happening for me? And then it becomes a puzzle, right? So, okay,
Mm-hmm.
so this is happening for a reason. I don't know what it is. Let me try to figure it out. And once you start trying to figure it out, you're like, oh, okay, so that's why that happened, and that's why that happened. It shifted me in a direction where I was going in one direction, and I thought that's where I was supposed to go. But God had different plans, so He closes off that path and forces you to go a different way. Because when you go that different way, you're going to discover things. You're going to discover things that you didn't even know were possible. And that
Right.
kind of that leads me into my police career perfectly. My police career, I was looking for an identity, I was looking for a purpose, I was looking for a calling. Thought I had it in college with teaching, and I realized that I taught high school English for 1 year.
Oh, okay. I didn't
I
know
was a
that.
sh I was a Shakespeare guy, like,
Okay.
oddly enough, I was a Shakespeare guy, and I loved literature. I went into teaching high school, and I realized because I wanted to be that teacher that I needed. Why, I used to think, why didn't any teacher see that I wasn't a bad kid, I was getting tortured at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I figured, okay, let me try to be the teacher that I needed. And I got into teaching and I love teaching the kids. I couldn't stand the other teachers. And I'm not
Mm.
going to crap on teachers because teachers have a very difficult job in this day and age. But the teachers that I went with, it was like moving cattle through. They really didn't care if you were bad or anything. I was just labeled a bad kid. So when I taught high school and I got into the kids, I'm very idealistic. And one of the things they tell you is never go into the teacher's lounge. I did. And I heard
Mm.
these teachers talking about these kids. Little Johnny's a shithead and this person's this. And I'm thinking to myself, God, don't what is wrong with you people? And I remember looking at myself in the mirror and there was like I said, I was a kid, I was 21 years old. And I said, there's no way I'm doing this for the next 35 years. There's just no way I can do this stuff. And that next day, I handed in my resignation, and I was done.
Wow.
And I sorta, worked different jobs, and I always had a good job, but it was a job. It wasn't a
Mhm.
it wasn't a purpose. And then one day, I'm in the gym, and, I'm working out. I used to work out with a guy. I didn't know what he did. He just worked out hard. He was an older guy, probably in his 50s at the time. And it turns out he was a retired deputy chief of the Essex County Prosecutor's Office. And he's like, you know what? My friend, who's the chief of police in Roseland, New Jersey, he's hiring.
Hmm.
What? And he was in there that one day, and he goes, "Why don't you take the test?" And I was like, "Well, I never really wanted to become a cop, but I was tired. I was traveling a lot, and I was tired of traveling." I said, "Okay." He says, "You get your benefits, and you get a pension, decent salary. You'll never be rich, but you make a decent living." So I took the test, and I did very well on the test. I think I scored a perfect score on the test.
Hmm.
So in June 19th of 2001, I get hired by the Roseland Police Department. I go into the academy in August, and from day one, man, I'm like, "Oh, this is it." I was a round peg in a round hole, man. The discipline, the structure was everything that I needed. And I was green, though. I was so green. But again, I went into this as just a good job.
Yeah. So
Well,
you were in the police academy during 9/11 then?
so it's a funny story. So one Tuesday morning, we just finished PT, and the Essex County Police Academy. There's portions of there. If you walk 5 miles down the road, you could see the city skyline.
Okay.
So we just get done PT. We're cleaning up the class, getting ready for instruction, and in walks the captain. And I always like to paint the picture of the captain. He was a great guy, but he used to run with us. Older guy. He had a big white bushy mustache, longer hair that kind of covered the ears. He wore he wore shorts that I could see the outline of his privates. Like I saw everything. I mean, we're like real short, short knee socks with the stripes, and
Nice.
like he was a throwback to Hill Street Blues. Like he
Yeah,
was in
yeah,
central
yeah.
casting.
That's awesome.
Jack McGrarty was his name, and he was a fantastic guy, but he needed some fashion advice. He comes walking in his grape smuggler pants, and
Grape
he
smuggler.
says, "A plane just hit the World Trade Center."
Hmm.
Now, everybody thinks that's a cause for alarm, but you got to understand, planes did crash into those buildings. It didn't happen frequently, but it happened enough where it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, oh, it
Yeah.
was a horrible accident, and we sort of just went on about our day. But there was a girl next to me. She was a transit cop, and I saw a look of concern because her father worked in the World Trade Center,
Oh, wow.
but not too big of a concern. 20 minutes later, he comes in. He goes, "Another plane just hit the World Trade Center." Now the temperature of the room completely changes,
Mhm.
and you saw everybody get a little bit more serious. This thing that I took that was just a job, you kind of didn't know, were we being attacked? Nobody knew, but you can hear overhead they're scrambling the fighter jets.
Mm.
Like you can hear them.
Yeah.
So our departments recall us, and on my way back to the department, right from the academy, I drove into West Orange. I had to go right through it, and I look over and I see the towers burning. I'm like,
Wow.
"Holy cow, man,
Man.
this is bad." To speak to the uncertainty of the times, I walk into my department, and the chief of police says to the lieutenant who was the armor, he says, "Go up and get him his weapon." I'm a month into the police academy. I haven't
Wow.
qualified yet.
Yeah.
He gives me my weapon, which was a Smith & Wesson SW40. It's like a Glock knockoff.
Mhm.
Gives me 4 magazines or gives me 5 magazines, gives me all my rounds, put it in my holster, and he says, "Don't shoot anybody, kid."
Damn.
So they are giving an unqualified man
Yeah.
a weapon, but you got to understand the time. 25 years ago, nobody knew what was happening. They were
Mm.
tracking the plane over Pennsylvania, or it might have just crashed. So it was chaos. Like it was scary. And I went out and stood post. But that was the day I found out what police work really was. So we had a couple high value targets in town, one of them being ADP. ADP at the time controlled like 70% of the world's paychecks. So if you
Mm.
cripple ADP, you cripple the world financially. So we had to stand post. And while I'm standing out there, people are coming up to me and they're saying, "Hey, listen, my uncle, my wife, my brother works in the World Trade Center. Do you know anything?" Little did they know we didn't have any more information. And as a matter of fact, they probably had more information than we had because they were watching TV. And what being a police officer is when people's worlds are going to shit, when their world is just blowing up and they're having their worst day, they're going to come to a police officer thinking you have the answers.
Mhm.
Many of the times we don't have the answers, but you sort of have to fake it until you make it.
Yeah.
They're looking for calm. They're looking for stability. They're looking for somebody to take control of an uncontrollable situation. So I found out what police work was that day.
That's a lot,
And
man. That's a lot for them to put. I mean, I know you had to do it, but to put that on your shoulder, especially coming not even being a graduate of the police academy, man, I bet you were terrified.
it was like a shocking thing in the Northeast, man. Everybody who lives up here knows somebody that died in the towers.
I believe
Everybody.
it. I believe
I
it.
got a handful of people that I know because they all work for Cantor Fitzgerald, and Cantor Fitzgerald is one of the floors that got hit directly,
Mm,
and they got wiped out. One of my best friends in college worked there. He got
wow.
one call off to his wife, says, "Hey, honey, plane just hit the building," and then the phone call cut off, and that was it.
Jeez.
Um, yeah, Don Adams, man, he was a mountain of a man too, and he
Mm,
was a great guy, and I still think, I still say a little prayer for him every September 11th.
man.
Um, but that's what it was, and eventually we go back to the police academy, and I get out on the road, and I really did love that job because you were making a difference.
Hmm.
You were when people didn't know what to do, they called you. When somebody's husband drops and they've been married for 50 years and he falls face first on the floor because he had a massive heart attack, you're there trying to pick up the pieces. And the last thing you can do is panic or say, "Hey, I don't know what to do," because
Right.
you just they need something. They
Yeah.
need something to gravitate towards, and that's what police work was, and that's what my career was. Yeah, there's the police chases, and you'll remember your first dead body, but you won't remember the 70 after that. You remember your first police chase, but and you'll just look for subtle differences because what police work eventually will do is rob you of your humanity.
Hmm.
So when you were on, you remember your first dead body. I'll guarantee it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Do you remember your 10th dead body?
Well, the department I worked at, we didn't see that many, so no.
I mean,
Nothing like Jersey.
people die of medicals or something like that.
Yeah, they
Um,
do. They do. But
you know, you like I say, you just look for differences. Oh, wow, look, they got nipple rings. Oh, okay. Something just to make them more human because otherwise
right.
it's just a dead body.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, so what did you enjoy the most about police work? Was it because you felt like you were really, helping people when they needed someone, or was there another? Because a lot of guys will say, like, when I got in, I wanted to go narcotics. I enjoyed that. It was a game for me, and I had a lot of fun with it. And I didn't have a lot of experience with drugs before I became a cop. I mean, I saw it in college. I never did it because I wanted to join the military and thought I couldn't go that route if I did. But for me, that was fun. So I wanted to be in dope. That was all I cared about. But like for you, what really stood out to you, Kevin? Like, was it really helping people? Because I'll just be 100% transparent. And this sounds horrible. I didn't get into it for that.
And see,
I didn't.
I really did. There's one call in particular where we had a suicidal female. Her mother called. They were living together, and we go in there, and there's sitting next to her. She's holding a serrated steak knife, and
Mm.
sitting next to her is a 4-year-old child. It's her
Oh,
child, and her
damn.
child's scared to death. She's not putting the kid in danger, but she wants to end her life.
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to go near her. I'm not supposed to go within 25 foot. There's that 25-foot rule back then. But all I did was just sit on the bed. That's all I did was just sit on the bed and talk to her. And I said, "Listen, man, we can work this stuff out." But I'm looking at the kid, and the kid's real scared. He's like huddled up against his mother, and so then the kid, as through the conversation, the kid just starts pointing at my belt. You're like Batman to these little kids.
Yeah.
He's pointing at my belt, and he's like, he's curious. He's like, "What is that? What is that?" And I'm showing him. I take off my badge. I hand him my badge, and I was like, "This is my knife. This is my pepper spray. This is my magazines." And he's going through, and I'm watching this kid just sort of slide away from his mother
Mm.
and just become very curious. Um, and then eventually, after about 25, 30 minutes, the woman just she comes to her senses and she drops the knife, and they take her away. They take her to crisis. The kid stays with his grandmother. And that's usually all you get, right? That's
Mhm.
usually the end of the story for patrolman. Well, fast forward 10 years, and this kind of makes it all worth it. 10 years, I'm in the grocery store. I'm in civilian clothes. I'm shopping for my family. And I hear in the back of the aisle say, "Hey, Officer Kevin."
Hmm.
And when you're in plain clothes and you hear your name, you're like, "Oh boy."
Yeah.
No."
What's coming?
So I turn around. It's about a 14, 15-year-old kid there. And he goes, "You're not going to remember me, sir, but my name's Mason.
Hmm.
And you're the one who helped my mom. And she's doing a lot better right now." And he gives me a hug and tear, like I got
Man.
tears. And I was like, it's such an anomaly. It's such a unicorn in police work where you get to find out the postscript.
Mhm.
So I did love that, but my specialty I'm a puzzle guy, right?
Mhm.
My specialty was fatal motor vehicle accidents.
Really? Okay.
I just loved it. I loved putting the pieces together. I was like a nerd when it came to that stuff. I'd have to go to the autopsies, and if you're a physical fitness guy, going to an autopsy is the greatest thing in the world because it's a giant science experiment. As long as you can remove the fact that that was a human being sitting on that slab.
Yeah.
Um, and I loved every piece of motor vehicle accidents. I used to work hour after hour on them trying to figure out, okay, why did this happen? Because it's all there. All the pieces of the puzzle are there. You just have to arrange them in a certain way to figure it out. Um, and it was my love. I really just I got into it more than anybody else. So I did a bunch of fatal motor vehicle accidents, and that was my career. My career was just loving the job.
That's I'm glad you shared that because I think it's first of all, let's go back to the kid that saw you in the grocery store. People need to hear those kind of stories about law enforcement because law enforcement, gets such a black eye. And so it's good to hear the human side of it and how you were able to really help. Not only did you save the day because you were able to get the child, with I used to call it your Batman belt when I was working. But no, that's really cool. And then that's interesting that you like doing the wrecks because man, I hated working wrecks. I hated it. I hated the reports. I hated dealing with it. But yeah, it's cool to hear that side of it.
I hated DVs, right? I hated domestic violence,
Really?
and
Okay. All right.
on
Well,
my
that makes sense. That makes sense.
on my squad, because in New Jersey the rules are always changing, the paperwork's always
Uh,
changing, and on my squad I had a guy who came out of the detective bureau. They were doing DVs all the time, and I made a deal with him. I said I will take every crash because I used to be able to do a crash report before the scene was clear, before the tow trucks, because
wow.
I knew everything like on like the back. I knew where everything went.
Yeah.
So I said, "You do all the DVs. I will take all the crash reports. Deal?" He says, "Absolutely deal." Now we had maybe one DV a week,
Hmm.
maybe two. We had tons of crashes, so I got the short end of the stick, or so he thought. I didn't have to do any DV paperwork. I was more than happy with that. That was a great deal for me.
So while you're doing this, while you're experiencing all this death, and I know you mentioned earlier that at 42 is when you kind of really came back to God. What what was your head during all of this? Did you see the world through a lens of um there's so much evil that there's no way God's here? And I think you kind of hit on this earlier. Did you see it as I'm doing this righteous thing as a police officer, and I know even though I was struggling right now with my faith, but I know God is probably looking down on me saying, "Hey man, good job," because nobody else is going to step up and do this. How did you
You
look
could
at faith like that, you know?
you could have at that time, you could have interchanged the word God with like Zeus.
Mhm.
It was complete mythology to me.
Okay.
It was complete mythology. It was something people made up in order to make themselves feel better. It was something people made up in order to answer questions that could not be answered in their head, even though the logical thing was right there. Well, why is there evil in the world? Because there's evil people and they're
Mhm.
they're looking for advantage. Why is there evil in the world? And there's just as much good in the world, but evil gets highlighted.
Yeah.
So I didn't I there was no religious undertones or no religious context. We used to have to do on Sundays because it was a suburban town. We used to have to do what we called the church crossing. And
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
there was a Catholic church in town, and I'd watch people go into and I always seem to go back to crapping on the Catholic Church, and I'm sorry about that. But I used to watch people go into the parking lot. The church was called Our Lady of Blessed Sacrament, and they would wave people in, and everybody would be kind and nice, getting out of the car, shaking people's hands, and then I'd watch them leave. And when they left, you better not be standing in front of them because they will run you over. They're cutting people off, honking horns, and I'm like, "What happened to go in peace and serve the Lord? Praise be to God." It
Yeah.
I watched it every week, and I'm like, "If this is what being a Catholic or a Christian is, I
Yeah.
don't want any part of it."
Yeah.
So the more I saw, the more it pushed me away from God because I didn't feel nothing.
Yeah.
All right.
That makes sense.
I didn't feel nothing. My return to religion, it's purely a feeling. It's that's all it is. It's like let me put it to you this way. So you can't see, touch, taste, smell, or hear God.
Mhm.
So it goes completely on faith. It's a basis of faith. Can you can't take a picture of God, you can't capture God, can you capture the wind? Can you take a picture of the wind? Right?
No.
But you know the wind's there, right? And
Yeah.
why do you know the wind's there? Because when that breeze blows on you, you feel it.
Mhm.
Well, the same thing is with God and Jesus. You feel it. You
Mhm.
feel it. And I can't tell you how to feel it. You just have to feel it. Um, so I didn't have any religious context when I was a police officer. As it just, a lot of police officers are that way. A lot of them are that
Yeah,
way.
they are. They are. I was that way. I mean, I knew God was real, but I didn't put him in the job. I didn't pray going to calls. I didn't pray after work. I wasn't going to church. I just kind of, I don't know. I knew he was there, but like you mentioned earlier, I kind of had him on the shelf. It was like,
I I think I had to separate from God. I had to
mm,
separate from God. I had to see how the other side is,
yeah,
and the other side's hollow. The other
yeah,
side is lonely.
it is.
Um,
Yeah, it is.
because if I think back to those times, I was as many people as I had around me, I was really lonely inside.
Hmm.
It's just not the right way to live.
So how did you go from doing that into kind of carrying the torch for the mental health side of things? I mean, that's a drastic change. And I know we need to go slow down a little bit because I mean you got hurt and then that kind of led to a change, right?
When somebody wings a bullet at your ear and it wiggles your ear, it has a tendency to really shift things.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
So on July 10th, 2013, I had to go to a domestic call of a well-known domestic hotspot. Guy named Anthony Vocaturo he broke up with his girlfriend who lived in town, and he sent a picture of himself with a Glock 9mm to his head. He lived in
Hmm.
Florida.
Okay.
So on one Wednesday night, it was a 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift. I'm about to go into cover. We had to cover the desk in 4-hour blocks because we didn't have dispatchers at the time. And so our job on weekday nights is kind of put the town to bed, make sure doors are locked, make sure businesses are secure. So I go to start doing my business checks, and I remember pulling right before then. I pulled up next to my partner, and I said the stupidest thing on planet Earth, and I God, it sticks in me that I said, because the one word that a police officer, if he ever says it, he should be fired. Now you
Yeah.
know what this word is.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Right? What's that word?
It's quiet tonight.
It's quiet. I said, "Wow, it's really quiet tonight,
Yeah,
man."
it's really quiet.
I hope, I'll take an alarm. Just get me out of the car. I'm tired of
Yeah.
driving around.
Yeah.
So I said, all right, I gotta go cover the desk. I'm gonna go do my checks and, go in. So as I pull into the parking lot, it comes over the radio. The officer says, start heading to this address,
Mm.
open 911, unknown emergency. Now we knew the address because there had been what our form of Ebola, be on the lookout
Yeah.
for, came out.
Yeah.
So I turn around real quick. My partner, who had to swing around a little further, he's right behind me. We're going, lights, no sirens, going car to car, trying to figure out, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go here. It was a townhouse complex. And when we go up to the door, like a bunch of idiots, I left my car running right in front because, again, it's 10:45 at night. Nobody's going to take my car. My cell phone's in the car. And we pound on the door, and all we hear on the other side of the door is, don't come in here, and don't come in here. Somebody screaming. We hear a woman screaming. So I go to my car, and I get my Halligan bar, my little crowbar thing. My partner goes around the back because there's only 3 egresses to this particular townhouse. There's the front door garage, and then there's the rear slider. And there's a little privacy deck where the slider is. And while I'm in the front, we go on a signal. I start pounding the door with the Halligan bar to pop the door. A lieutenant shows up. He's right behind me, and yeah, I got some choice words to say about him. But as soon as I start pounding, I get about 3 pounds in, and I hear pop, 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 pop. So my partner, what had happened was he had the gun pointed right at the door. So whoever went in first was going to get it. That would have been me.
Yeah.
Once he realized the game is over, he raises the gun, puts the gun to the woman's head, and he's going to shoot her. And my partner exchanges gunfire with him through the sliding glass door.
Damn.
So other units are coming. We relied a lot on mutual aid from other towns. They start coming. I go in the back. I'm checking on my partner. I'm yelling shots fired, over the radio. But I find out my partner's okay. So a sergeant shows up, and we make the decision that we're going to go in. We're going to get the victim. Because when we go in the back and we can see the victim, she's seated up against the wall, obviously terrified. We cannot see this Anthony Vocatoro guy. We cannot see where he is. I never saw him once.
Hmm.
So we go on the deck. I get over to the left, which I think it's a real small, like 9x9 deck. I go over to the right side, figuring it's the best vantage point. I can see the victim. I can see everything. I just couldn't see where he was. We throw a chair through the sliding glass door. Glass goes everywhere. And in the minute we do that, I just see this big giant flash. And when you're at the range, that blowback you get from the gunpowder.
Yep.
Feels like somebody threw sand in my face. I feel heat. I feel a burst of heat because it's July. And then I feel my left ear wiggle. So what he did was he was standing right behind the pillar right next to the sliding glass door, and he reaches his gun around like this and fires.
Wow.
And it wiggled it. I don't know. It grazed it. There was a little blood. It was nothing bad. So I hit the ground, and I'm very calm. I'm very lucid. No panic in me, no fear, no nothing. The other officers who were over to the left, they were able to retreat off of the deck. The lieutenant that was there, he ran. Like, he ran away.
No
Left me for
kidding.
dead. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, he's got to deal with that. He's got to deal with that stuff. So here I am. I'm looking around. There's blood everywhere. The other officers who were on the deck with me, they never left. They just stood behind cover. And I remember them shouting to me, going, "Are you hit? Are you hit?" And I said, I don't know. I see a lot of blood. That's all I kept saying. I see a lot of blood. So I'm sitting there, and the lucidity, just to speak to how calm I was, we used to keep our key ring on the top of our antenna.
Okay.
When I hit the ground, my keys popped off. I saw it. I'm like, oh, okay. And I just picked my keys up and put it back on my antenna. I have my weapon out, and I get into a shooting position, and all these things are going through my mind. It's so strange. I'm thinking about my kids at home. I had my youngest was about 8 months old, maybe 9 months, and my oldest was just about to turn 4. And I'm thinking about them, and I'm thinking about my wife, and I'm thinking, well, my baby's never gonna know who I am. My 3-year-old, he'll have vague memories of me, but not much, because I'm trapped. I can't, if I crawl out, I go right past the open sliding glass door. He's got a clear shot at me.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, well, I'm preparing myself to die, in other words. And I was like, if I'm going, you're coming with me. So I get in a shooting position, I get in a prone position, and all I'm waiting for is him to just duck his head out, and he's going to get double tapped right on the forehead. And thankfully that never came. But what had happened was, the one officer, he reached on the other side of the railing. And I make a joke about it. When I go out and speak about this stuff, I say, I know I got a swimmer's body, but I don't move so fast. He grabbed the back of my duty rig and assisted me off while the sergeant held cover. And I was able to get off, and you kind of do one of these, and you realize you got no holes in you. And you're just like, holy shit. But when we're standing at the bottom of the deck, I see the victim. She sort of just like slides up against the wall and walks out through the garage, and I'm going over the radio to the other officers out front. I'm like, hey, victim's coming out. She walks out very calmly, and he runs upstairs. Now he's alone. It's barricaded suspect, completely different situation.
Yeah.
We sort of back off and hold perimeter. We held perimeter for 2 hours. And I remember standing next to my partner going, what the hell just happened? Like, you're trying to process what just happened. This type of stuff didn't happen in the town I worked in. So after about 2 hours, the state police team's unit comes in, which is their version of SWAT. And we get relieved. I have to go to the hospital. I wasn't shot, but the blood that I was seeing, when I went down on all the broken glass. So my forearms were shredded.
Oh, wow.
And I had a bunch of glass in my arm. And so I have to go to the hospital. I don't want to go to the hospital, but I didn't have, remember, my car's still out front, still running with my cell phone in it.
Yeah.
All I'm thinking about is I want to call my wife, because spouses, they talk. And I didn't want her to hear this from anybody else. Somebody's going to say, hey, there's a shooting in Roseland. Is your husband working? Yeah, he's working. I can't get a hold of him.
Yeah.
So I grabbed the EMT's cell phone, and she's the one number I know off the top of my head. I dial it and figure it's like 12:30 at night, 12:45 at night. and I say, "Hey, hon, I just want to let you know I was in a shooting. I'm not shot. I'm okay. I have to go to the hospital to get glass removed from my arm. I'll call you when I can." Click. I don't know whether that was the right move. I should have probably just let her sleep, but it was the best I could do at the time.
Yeah.
I know she didn't get any sleep from past that. So I go to the hospital. They get a bunch of glass removed from my arm, and I get back and I get home at about 5 in the morning. And I remember I was so amped up and I was full of so much adrenaline that I went out for a run, figuring that would burn it off. That didn't
Mhm.
work. Walked my dog. That didn't work. But I remember hugging my wife and my kids a little extra tighter that morning. So, all the cops are calling you. They want to find out what's going on, and you get back to as many as you can. And I thought, listen, hey, we did a great job. We saved a life. You know, if you look at it on the surface, it was a great job. So that night, my wife and I, we want to go out and celebrate, and we want to go have dinner together, and we're going to go to a movie. And I'm still trying to process what's going on. So the devil comes over. I mean, my mother-in-law comes over to watch the kid, and
Yeah, edit that part out.
no, no, leave it in there. She knows exactly how I feel about her. I'm very transparent when it comes to that stuff. So we go see a movie called This Is the End, which was when Seth Rogen used to be funny.
Mm.
And in the beginning of that movie, for anybody who's seen it, there's a scene where there's like big flashes of light and big booms, and some people get sucked up to heaven, and certain people stay on earth, which is hell.
Hmm.
Whatever happened in those booms, I started having like a full blown panic attack.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't breathe. I started to sweat. It felt like my heart was coming out of my chest. Figuring that I don't want to scare my wife anymore. I just get up and we lie. I say,
Yeah.
listen, and what's the best lie when you want to get away from your girl? You say, I got to go to the bathroom.
Mhm.
So I get up and I just sit in the hallway and I just try everything I can to get over this, but I can still hear the booms in the theater, and I try to go in a couple times. I can't. I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on. But my wife, after like 15 minutes, she comes out. She goes, "You all right?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm all right. I just ate something bad. It's no big deal." She goes, "Well, this movie sucks," because she knew something was wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
That night I went home and I had about the worst nightmare I could ever have, and it was like stupid. It was like I pull my weapon out, my magazine drops, and all my rounds go everywhere, or a bang flag comes out. It's just like anxiety-filled dreams. And I would wake up, and I would have them every night after them, where I'd wake up so wet that I'd have to change my clothes because I was just have night terrors.
Mhm.
Um, and that was the beginning. Like I went down a rabbit hole of the only thing that seemed to calm me a little bit was drinking. So
Mm.
I just never stopped drinking. I would
Yeah.
drink tequila from the time I got up to the time I went down. I stopped working out because I lost my passion for it.
Mm.
I was so short with my wife and kids. Uh, I would throw things at my wife. It's not going to paint me very well, but I spit in my wife's face
Mm.
because when your brain gets broken and when you have trauma like that, it's thought action. There's
Yeah.
nothing in between.
Very reactive.
Yeah, so that's how I was. I ripped closets out. I saw something out of place, and I would just say this. You get frustrated, and you just rip them out. And I was becoming like a huge monster. My kid, my 3-year-old, he's playing with a Nerf gun, and he points the Nerf gun at me, and I do that maneuver on him. You know that maneuver when somebody's
Mhm.
pointing a gun. I quick turn it around on him, and I remember seeing his face, and this is something that really haunts me. Is his face had that blank look.
Mm.
That look, not crying, just that
Y
blank look.
Yeah.
I threw the gun in the trash and I walked out of my house. I turned off my cell phone. I walked about 2 miles into the woods and I sat there for 3 days with a bottle of water.
Wow.
One of the things I want to point out is because I'm not sleeping and I removed myself from the bedroom, so I'm downstairs watching TV most of the night. I'm carrying my gun with me everywhere because I'm very, very paranoid.
Mhm.
And I just sat in the woods for 3 days trying to figure stuff out. I didn't really have a plan. I didn't really think about what I was doing. I didn't wanna have any communication. There was people out looking for me. They couldn't find me. After about 3 days, I kinda just woke up and went, "All right, time to go home." I go home, I walk in like nothing happened. So that was the first part that was going really bad. After about 3 or 4 weeks, I just started to go into such a rapid decline, and the damage I was doing to my family, I couldn't take it. So one night I go into my office and I pull out my weapon and I write a little note. I said, I can't take this no more. I
Mm,
write a little note. I write passwords. I write, here's how you contact the pension system, and I'm just going to end it. I'm going to end my life right now because they're going to be better off without me. I put that gun in my mouth and I'm staring at a wall, and on the wall I have all my diplomas and anything I'm proud of is up there, and I'm looking for a reason not to do it. And I held
mhm,
that gun in my mouth for probably I would say about 20 minutes, and I'm replaying the incident. The tears are streaming down my face. And then after about 20 minutes, the weirdest thing happened. The strangest thing happened. I had this like clear thought, and I go, like, what are you doing? I take the gun out of my mouth and I hold the gun in my hand, and that gun weighs 1 pound 9 ounces. It's a Smith and Wesson Chief Special, nickel plated 38. I'm holding it in my hand and I'm looking at it. I'm like, what the hell were you just going to do? You're going to blow your head off. One of your kids could find you, or your wife's going to come down with your head half missing. And it was the stupidest thing in the world for me. I knew I couldn't be trusted. The next day I got up, I never told her. Next day I got up and I called the one guy I still talk to on the department, because what you got to understand, when you're in a critical incident like this, half the department thinks you're full of shit.
yeah, yeah.
Some people are going to reach out to you, but you don't pick up the phone because you
You're
don't
an
know what to say to
outcast.
them. Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't know what to say to these people. And then
Mhm.
there's people who you thought would reach out that don't, and you'd get mad at them. But what's the difference? Because if they called, you're still not going to pick up the phone.
Yeah, you're not gonna talk to him.
So I call him up, and his name was Terry, and I said, Terry, he was a sergeant. He was one of the guys that was there that night.
Mm,
And I said, Terry, I can't have my gun in my house. I need you to take it. And I was fully prepared to give him the whole backstory, some line of bullshit. And he just said this, to his credit. He goes, all right, put it in a lockbox. I'll meet you here.
hmm,
And he took my gun, but I'm still drinking. And, I have about 7 or 8 suicide attempts under my belt. I tried to hang myself. I tried to take pills. I woken up to EMTs more times than I can count. Um, and I'm drinking more. I'm drinking and taking benzos. I'm taking Klonopin.
mm. Okay.
So very, very dangerous.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was my life for a while. The one positive thing that I was doing, I was going to group therapy. So I was involved with other officers
Good.
who were in critical incidents, and I realized that the things that I was going through are very similar to what they were going through. So it makes you feel less alone, and it kind of makes you feel normal for a moment.
Yeah, yeah.
Really, really important. Then I got hit again with some. I wasn't going back to work. They wouldn't let me back to work until my therapist says, "Hey, you got to retire."
Hmm.
And I said, Jesus, man, this purposeful life, this thing I think I found. Now you're telling me I can't do it no more, and I'm at a loss.
Mhm.
Um, but I know I got to clean my life up. So I voluntarily checked myself into rehab, and I got to take a step forward, and that's what I did. And I went
Okay.
into rehab. I went into rehab completely sober, 5 books, 3 notebooks, workout plan. I said, okay, we're changing shit today.
Hmm.
And I went into rehab November 26, 2013, and I haven't had any alcohol since then. The only reason I remember that it was November 26th because it was the day after Thanksgiving. I wasn't going to spend Thanksgiving in rehab.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
getting into the second part of this very long-winded story that you've been so kind to sit through, how I got involved in the mental health space was I retired in June of 2014. I chose to stay in group therapy and assist other officers. This guy got a lot of help too. I
mhm.
wanted to assist other officers in their journey so they didn't go through the same crap I went through. And,
Yeah.
guys would come in and I would say, dude, you and I are going to become real, real tight. We're going to become friends. I'm going to be on top of you. I'm not going to let you fall on this one. I've been where you are.
Mhm.
And it made me feel really good. So part of it was selfish because I got a lot of purpose out of that.
I think you have to be selfish though to heal. and to overcome. I mean, dude, just hearing you talk, and I want to walk back a second. So we've talked a lot about faith. We've talked about how you kind of drifted and then you came back. When you were in the woods for those 3 days, man, did you hear anything? Did you
Oh,
evaluate and I wanted to ask you one more, but when you answer this, I want to come back to something else that I thought of. But like that solitude, did you hear, even if it was not God, it was something else, did you hear anything, kind of trying to steer you a certain direction or maybe to encourage you, for lack of better words, to go one way or the other? I think you know where I'm going with this, but
yeah. Yeah. So what you know what when you're in quiet for long enough, you start picking up sounds that you're deaf to.
yeah, yeah.
What I would listen to all day and all night, I would listen to the wind blowing the trees.
Hmm,
And it makes a very specific sound. And I used to think the trees are talking to me. I know that sounds insane, but sit in the woods, if you sit in peace and quiet for long enough, you will hear every bird, you
mhm,
will hear every leaf rustling. And I remember looking up. I'm just sitting up against a tree, and I remember looking up and watching the trees just rustle. And it was almost melodic to me, and it was very calming to me. So that's what I heard out there. I can't say
okay,
that was the voice of God, but I will tell you that that got me through some real darkness that day. Now, the other part of that is, and this took me years to figure. I was 39 when I retired.
mhm,
This took me years to figure out. Um, when I took the gun out of my mouth and I had like a pause. I didn't know why I paused. I didn't know what that was. When I rediscovered my faith, I realized that was God telling me, "You're not done yet. You got a couple more things to do."
mhm,
All right, that's the first time that God has actually spoken to me.
hmm,
He spoke to me by saying, "Hey, you're not finished yet." He didn't
yeah,
say those words. He let me figure it out on my own.
yeah,
That's what happened there. Took me years to figure that out. I mean, I probably didn't figure that out until about 6 or 7 years ago.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, the second part of my question is, you go through this shooting, you go through this whole event, and just going on what you've told me so far with your childhood, do you think somehow that triggered some trauma from your childhood and it just compounded on top of what you experienced? So that's why you almost just wanted to give up, because it just brought back all that horrific darkness and horror that you experienced as a kid. And now you throw into, now I'm a police officer, I'm involved in a shooting, I'm dealing with all this. Do you think that played a big role in that for you?
It absolutely did. And I do know this from dealing with a lot of officers who are involved in shootings. Those who grew up in solid households have a better chance of recovery than people who grew up in toxic households.
Mm,
One of the things I believe, and I believe this wholeheartedly, is when we're born, we're given like a glass that can hold all the crap that we see in life. Because life, the one certainty of life is it's going to kick your ass.
mhm,
And every time something new comes, a little bit more water gets put in that glass, and you don't know how big your glass is. You don't know when it's going to spill over. You're not told the amount that it can hold. And sometimes it's just a single drop that will spill the glass.
okay.
After that shooting, my glass was probably most of the way full. The shooting just made it spill all over
Yeah,
everywhere.
yeah,
So
that
I
makes
just I
sense.
broke. I broke. So it absolute my childhood definitely had a role to play in it because my capacity to take on that trauma was so limited because of how I grew up. I didn't have much left in that glass.
Mhm. Well, how did you get sober? I know you were in, rehabilitation and stuff, but, like, how did you what was there a driving factor for you to stay? Because I mean, a lot of people, like for me, I was sober for a year and a half, right? But I did it for the wrong reasons. It's like, all right, I'm gonna go back to I'm just gonna drink beer. I'm not gonna drink liquor. But that I didn't do it for myself. I did it for my ex-wife. So was there like a driving force for you to, I mean, dude, that's a long time. Congratulations on that, because that's a long time to be sober. There had to be some kind of, I mean, I hate to use this word because I'm not one of these woo-woo people, but higher power or greater sense of self to be able to maintain that sobriety. Because, dude, let's be honest. I mean, let's just be 100% real here for people listening. Drinking is fun, regardless of the destruction that you do. I don't care what anybody says. It is fun to get wasted and just be an idiot. I mean, I thought it was, you
It's
know.
fun for a little while. It's fun
Well,
for a little while.
it is the collateral damage it causes is not fun, but in the moment, it's pretty damn fun.
George Carlin has a great quote, and he says, when you start doing drugs or alcohol, in the beginning, it's 99% fun, 1% pain. You wake up with a hangover, maybe you did something stupid, said the wrong thing to somebody, but there's a seesaw effect with that. You do it long enough, and it'll become like 1% fun and 99% pain.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
at that time, I went into rehab. Drinking was about 99% pain for me. I had drank before, and I wouldn't say I had a problem, but I couldn't live without it. Like,
Yeah.
at the point, I couldn't function without it. I was drunk from the time I woke up. Um, when I make my mind, say I'm a very committed person. When I make my mind up about something, I go full force. With trying to be sober or with alcoholism or trauma in general, one of the things that you must do, this is a must, this is a non-negotiable. You must surrender to either the trauma and try and any type of substance dependency is a trauma. Okay, it's a trauma that you're putting on your body. You
Mhm.
must surrender to it. You must fully understand that this thing is bigger than me. I cannot beat this on my own, and I need help. Whatever form that comes in. When you do that, you've taken your first step towards either sobriety or healing from the trauma, but you must take that first step by saying, this is way bigger than me.
Hmm.
And every trauma program, every alcoholism program, AA included, you must submit that you cannot handle this on your own, on
Yeah.
your own.
Yeah.
So with sobriety in the beginning, I just kept my world real small.
Okay.
Okay. I just made it was, and AA is great. I think AA's timeline is a little too condensed, but that's my opinion. The one day at a time theory.
Mhm.
I'm not going to stay sober forever. I'm going to stay sober today.
Yeah.
All right. With trauma, I'm not going to say that this trauma is never going to bother me. I'm going to do my best to mitigate it today.
Hmm.
So keep your world real small. It's kind of like, so do you ever go out on the road and run?
I used to when I was a
Okay.
runner, yeah.
You have bad runs. You
Oh,
have
yeah.
bad days.
Yeah.
So rather than think like I used to go, I've run a few marathons, and instead of thinking, okay, I got to run 5 miles today. No, I just got to run to that telephone pole right there. If I run
Yeah.
to that telephone pole, I'm going to give myself permission to quit. As long as I make it to that telephone pole. And then when you make it to the telephone pole, you know what? I can make it to
Keep
the next
going.
telephone pole.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's keeping your world small. So
That's good.
I even
That's
to this
good.
day, I keep my world small. I never once say, I am never drinking again. I'm not sober. I'll tell you this, I can go into a bar, I can go around people who are pissed drunk, and
Hmm.
I have no desire for it anymore because I know I'm the type of person that you give me one drink, you and I are going to wake up in a different country. I've done it.
Yeah.
I've done it. I've woken up in Mexico. I've
Wow.
woken up in Canada
Yeah.
because I'm an idea man when I drink, and I'm
Yeah.
fearless.
That's crazy.
I'll
I
do whatever I got to do.
I understand. I know for me, it took me a long time to like, I wouldn't even want to walk down the aisle in the grocery store where there was beer because I would, I don't know. It wasn't like I couldn't control myself, but it just, I don't know, man. Like I didn't want to go to bars. I didn't want to be around, I didn't want to be around parties. And I still to this day, I don't want to be around it, but I don't have the urge to drink. And I know it's probably judgmental on my part to not want to be around it because there are certain times you're going to have to be around it. But I just, I lost so much because of my own alcohol abuse that I don't want any part of it. I'm not saying I won't, I'm just like you put it best, one day at a time. I don't think about alcohol like I used to, but it's almost a thing now where like I can go to a restaurant and somebody's having a beer. I don't sit there and go, "Oh man, I wish I could have a beer." But it's almost like I'm almost forgotten what it's like, you know? It's kind of like when you get divorced and you have trouble remembering being married. And that's a real thing. It is at least for me. And so alcohol is kind of that same way for me too.
It just lost its grip on me.
Yeah.
Used to have a pretty solid grip on me. It lost its grip on me. It lost its power over me. I don't like having anything have power over me like that.
But
I just it's not in my nature.
the one thing we haven't talked about it, but there's a verse in the Bible that says be sober and stay vigilant because your enemy prowls around like a roaring lion waiting to devour you. And I know when I would drink, man, that's when I would like just just have these dark, crazy thoughts, and there's a lot of truth to that, man. Because and DJ Shipley put it really good. He said, "Cop, veteran, whatever. How are you going to protect your family if there's a home invasion and you're drunk? How are you going
Yeah.
to do that?" And I never thought of that when I was a drink, because I've always been the guy like, I'm going to protect my family. I got this. But if you're pissed drunk, passed out on the couch, you're not even going to hear them. You're going to be chilling, or you're going to be in Mexico. You're going to wake up in Mexico. But
My big
yeah.
problem with drinking was always, if there was, you drink until it's gone.
Oh, me too, man. Me too.
You drink, the party's over when there's no more liquor.
Mm-hmm.
I know I could very easily fall back into that if I allow myself, but I take too much pride in the life that I built.
Yeah.
I really do. I take too much pride in, and why would I want to destroy that for a momentary lapse of pleasure? To me, it's not worth it.
It's not worth it. No.
It's not worth it. How you feel when you miss the gym? You miss the gym one day, you feel like crap.
Yeah, you feel
And
like crap.
if I know if I ever fall back into that, I'll never forgive myself, and I don't
Yeah.
want to feel that anymore. I remember tomorrow. So there's a concept that I live by. It's called remember tomorrow. So think about this. You can go out tonight and you can do whatever you want to do. You're a grown ass man. All right. But you better remember tomorrow. So that sobriety that you hold sacred, well, you better remember what that's going to feel like. You broke your sobriety. Then you got your hangover, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have to remember tomorrow. You missed the gym for a couple months in a row. Well, you better remember that tomorrow when you're out of shape and you're not looking the way you want to look.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's real good. Well, where's Kevin today? Like, I know we haven't talked about the podcast yet. I wanted to ask you how you kind of got into that after, helping other men after going through your own rehabilitation. Like, where are you at today, and kind of fill our audience in on, the work you're doing. I know you pretty well and I keep up with you, so I already know, but for those that maybe don't know, can you kind of share some of that?
What I'm doing these days?
Yeah, because I know you have the podcast. Like, let's tell everybody the name of your podcast.
So I've been doing the Suffering Podcast. Lockdown happened, so group therapy ended. I needed an outlet.
Okay.
So I started the podcast in December 20th, 2020.
Nice.
And it was just a hobby. It was a harebrained idea, and somehow it is where it is today. But today I published my first. It's not even my first book. My most recent book came out in February of 24 called Man, You Are Crazy, where you can read all the stuff more in depth than what you heard today. And that was #1 bestseller for a while. My next book comes out in September, where it's slated. We just got it back from the editor.
Okay.
It's slated to come out in the end of September of this year. It's called A Life Unfolding. I write it with Sherry Alsop and Dr. Dorothy Nowitzki. Sherry Alsop is an incest survivor. I'm a sexual assault survivor. Dr. Nowitzki works with these folks, so she sort of does a clinical analysis. And what we want to do is explain some of the behaviors that we have. So it talks a lot about my childhood sexual abuse.
Okay.
And Dr. Nowitzki does a really, really good job at breaking down. I remember I was talking on the phone with Sherry Alsop, and she says, reading her analysis of what we went through, I learned things that I didn't know about myself. So that book's a very interesting book. It's a passion project, and it'll be out very, very soon. I go around the country. I speak to police officers. I speak at conferences. I'll be in Spooky Nook in Pennsylvania, and it's right outside of Lancaster. I'll be speaking at Seminar Stack. I do a class called Post Traumatic Success. Then I will be in September. I'll be in New Windsor, New York. I'll be in Dallas, or I'll be in Miami for the Bleeding Blue Conference. Then I'll be in Saskatchewan, Canada it's the Canadian officers. I can't remember the name of it. I will be in Bergen County. I got a bunch of different dates. So from here to the end of the year, I'm booked pretty solid.
Okay.
But I love doing it because I'm not looking to reach everybody. I'm looking to reach that one. And inevitably, everywhere I go, I'll stand off to the side. And when everybody's gone, there'll be that one person waiting for me. And that's what I'm there for. Everywhere I go, I'm there for one person. I don't know who it is, but those people will reveal themselves. I can tell you every place that I've been and the person I've been there for.
That's really cool, man. And I had some notes written down when I was going to do the intro. And the second thing I had written down, best-selling author, and I forgot to say it. I wanted to ask you this, since you're a podcast host and I'm still new at this game, is there a certain type of guest that you enjoy interviewing the most? Now, being a former police officer, are you more like, do you gravitate more towards cops, or is there a certain, certain person that really kind of jumps out at you that you really like, you just look forward to interviewing and have the most fun with it?
Yeah, I do. I go every route, man. I'm gonna tell you right. I do like interviewing cops because we'll talk a lot about the job, but I like
Mhm.
interviewing criminals. I've had gangsters on there. It hasn't aired yet. I just interviewed Linda Scarpa. Her father was Greg Scarpa, known as the
Mm.
Grim Reaper.
Wow.
Mark Wahlberg plays her father in a movie that's coming out in September called
Oh,
By Any
wow.
Means.
Yeah, that's cool.
She was on set with Mark Wahlberg, so I just had her in there. So she grew up in the life of a gangster, probably one of the most feared hitmen in New York City that New York City ever produced.
Mhm.
So I love there the one common and the reason I call it the suffering podcast because I believe that is the one common thing that binds all human beings on planet Earth together because we all experience suffering at one time or the other.
Mhm.
All right. And if we can start seeing the things that bring us together, we can stop being divided so much because this
Yeah.
country is so divided, and people can't even talk anymore.
No.
I've
Mm-mm.
done, I've done, I've done TV shows and I was on that one cop versus 20 criminals on
Oh, yeah,
Jubilee.
that's right. Yeah.
And I'm talking to people who just they're so polar opposite from me, and they think about all the things that make us different. They don't ever once look at the things that are similarities. And when you
Mhm.
when you go against somebody who you think is the polar opposite of you, you're going to realize that you're more like them than you think. All right, and that's what I one of some things I love to do, and I love just sitting down there and talking to people and finding out, what makes them tick. How'd you get through trauma? How'd you get over this stuff?
Mhm.
Because what how you did is gonna be different than the way I did it, but I might try something that you did.
Yeah. Yeah, learn from each other instead of,
Yeah.
um I wanna say this before I forget, and I should have mentioned this earlier. I wanna thank you, Kevin, for, inviting me on your show,
Oh,
especially
great, dude.
being new in the game, and, thanks to Keith for bringing us together, and man, it was weird, and I told you this in person, I'll say this here on the air. I I felt more calm on that trip. I went by myself and I felt more calmness to go and I shared more about my story on your show than I had really said on mine. And I just really appreciate the hospitality and the fellowship and the brotherhood, man, just to be able to come up there, and because you've had some big name people on your show, man, and I'm just a dude doing a thing, and I showed up, was like, man, it was a really great experience, and I'm grateful for it, man.
There's a little secret about podcasting when when you just start out, you want the big names, right? You want the people who you think are gonna knock it out of the ballpark, and they do. One that comes to mind, and I don't mean to shit on him because he's a friend of mine, Jerry Cooney, the boxer. Okay, Jerry Cooney fought for the heavyweight title in 1983, fought against Larry Holmes. In the boxing world, he is a god. So Jerry Cooney comes on, and I'm like, oh, great. It's going to, because Jerry Cooney's been sober 30 years, right? It's got a
Oh, wow.
great story. It's just wonderful. Um, I'm like, this is going to do great. The episode did horribly. You want to know
Oh,
why?
wow.
Because his whole life, somebody has been promoting for him.
Oh,
Okay, where you have a great story and I know you are going to be enthusiastic, and that's all I want. I want people to just be enthusiastic about coming on because I get excited about every single episode.
yeah,
I
yeah.
do. And I want you to mirror that excitement, and I prefer the average person. I do. I prefer the average person who has a message to get out or tell me something different rather than the person that's been on 50 different interviews and this is just another interview to them. It's
Yeah,
special to me. I want it to be special for them.
yeah, that makes sense, man. Well, I wanna circle back before we get to the end here. When did God become real in your story?
All right. So, episode 17,
Mhm.
very early on, I get introduced to this guy who's a retired NHL hockey player. His name's Adam Burke. Played for I played for the Carolina Reapers, played for the Philadelphia Flyers, and played for the Hartford Whalers. All right, hockey player for 14 years. He's now the chaplain of the New York Jets.
Hmm.
But I get introduced to him because he's a pro athlete. I'm like, oh, this is cool. First pro athlete to have on the show. It's fantastic. And I have coffee with him. And we're sitting down talking about everything. And he goes, and he tells me he's a pastor, and his church is called Every Nations New Jersey Church. He sends me a text a couple days later, and he goes, "Hey, KD, I'm praying for you." And dude, I'm going to tell you what, veins popped out of my neck. I got so mad. I mean, I got pissed off. I'm like, who the fuck do you think you are praying for me? Who did you do? But here's the thing. It dug into me, and I thought about it for days. I'm like, who? And I would get mad, and I'd be like, why is he praying for me? And like, what does he want from me?
Hmm.
So we record him, and I don't even call it the suffering of a hockey player. I call it the suffering of a man of God. And I
Hmm.
learned more is sitting in that episode. As a matter of fact, I'm on the same desk I used to record on audio only, exactly where I am right now. And I'm sitting across from him, and it was one of those things where, we talked a little bit of hockey, but mostly about his path into ministry.
Hmm.
So I'm very supportive of my guests. I go to his church one day, which turns out is like 5 minutes away from my house. And I sit in there, and I'm there with my boys, and it's during COVID, so everybody's wearing a mask. And I bring my boys. My boys are my get out of jail free card. I want to show him support that I'm coming to the church. The worship leader, Kim, who's got this voice of an angel, starts singing, and I start crying.
Hmm.
Like, I start really crying. Like, and my kids are with me. I don't want my kids to see me cry, right?
Yeah.
So mask is there, and I'm holding it in, and he always says that he looked over towards me, and he just saw like this stone face.
Hmm.
And I tell him now, it's like, yeah, because I was trying not to show anybody that I was such a wuss and crying. And it was such a wonderful feeling when I got out of there. And I remember looking over the congregation. In my church, there's some people who put their hands in the air and praise. And I remember looking at that going, I actually turned to my son during and goes, what the hell is that? Over time, where I used to say, what the hell is that? I started thinking, I'm like, well, what the hell do they feel in order to unapologetically put their hands in the air and praise?
Yeah.
They must be feeling something pretty wonderful. So the next week I went back and I said, let me see if I can replicate that. My kids obviously didn't want to go. They didn't want to have anything to do with it. I went back to see if I can replicate it. And sure enough, it happened again. And the next week it happened again. And that was, 5.5 years ago.
Nice.
And every single time I go in there, I stand in the back, and I'm a deacon in the church now.
Nice.
So I stand in the back basically because I don't want anybody to see me crying, because I sort of take care of a lot of different stuff in there. But that's the way I serve, right? I serve I serve by giving. That's what police officers do. We serve by giving.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a continuation of that. But I will tell you this, and I didn't want this. This is not the reason I got involved in church. Since I've gotten involved in church, my life has gotten exponentially better on every single level.
Hmm.
On every single level. I'm a better person. I'm a stronger person. I'm a more confident person. I have better relationships in my life. I see things a little bit differently. I don't get afraid as much. I used to be very fearful, you know, but God takes the fear right out of me, because when you relent and say, it's in your hands, God,
Yep.
it gives you a lot of relief. So it's changed my life completely.
That's amazing, man. And that was the Holy Spirit grabbing you
Oh yeah.
when you
Oh
wore
yeah.
that mask on. That's incredible, man. Is there like a scripture you'd like to share? I always ask guests, if they have a favorite scripture, and I've got one too, but I'm just curious if there's one you want to share with the audience.
It's a very common one, but it speaks to my personality. It's Isaiah 6:8.
Okay.
It's, I heard the voice of the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
and it said, whom shall I send? And I said, here am I, send me. I am a mean soldier of God. All right. When nobody else will step up, I'll be that one to step up. In this crazy world we live in, and we see people going into churches, and my church is my family. So when I stand in the back, I know there's a couple people in the audience. They're either retired cops or they have permits to carry. I know who has guns.
Mm-hmm.
And when I see somebody coming in, I look at them. My job is to protect my church family.
Yeah.
If I see somebody coming in and their face doesn't look right or their body language is off, I'll just stand by them. But I got a real easy way now. of diffusing a situation. If I see somebody that I might be suspect about, I'll just go and put my hand on their shoulder and say, hey, man, thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And what that does is says, okay, they're looking at me. They notice me.
Yeah.
Well, if they were up to no good, maybe they won't. But the minute they do something I don't like, I'll jump on them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So,
awesome.
so I try to protect in that form. And I love hearing the word because every sermon that's spoken sort of speaks to what's going on in my world that day.
That's beautiful, man. And
Yeah.
I'm going to say this too, man. Like, I think the world needs more men like you that have that powerful testimony, because the enemy wants us to stay quiet and not share God's love with the rest of the world. Like everything you've been through, man, all the horrific childhood stuff, all the trials, the call you were on where you were almost killed, and now you're able to share your testimony. And I know that inspires people, because there's so many people out there that have experienced church hurt, that don't feel worthy of Christ. And that really is what I have grabbed onto as a podcaster and as a man, is to try to teach others, because I'm not a deacon, I don't have a pulpit, but to show Christ is for everybody, regardless of what you've been through. And God's never going to leave you or forsake you, no matter what you've done. And I want people to understand that, you know.
You said something in the beginning where at first you didn't want to start off with a prayer and stuff. I believe that when you are silent, you are complicit.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get out of the hole that you're in and you're holding it inside and you're silent on stuff, you're complicit in that place that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
If you want people to follow God's rules and you're staying silent about it, you're complicit. That's why you'll hear me speak about it so freely, because I was like you too. When I started off, I don't want to talk about religion. People are going to think I'm a Jesus freak and it's going to drive people away. I don't care if it drives people away.
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you that my life is better with Christ in it. If you want to join me, come on, man. There's a spot for you. There's a spot on our team.
Amen.
People come to me and ask me questions. I'm like, I don't have all the answers, but I have a guy who does.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and there's a verse, and I forgot what verse it is, but Christ basically says, if you're lukewarm, he'll spit you out. And so I would remind myself of that, like, you better not be lukewarm, dude. You better be strong and courageous and just do it. Just go for it. But so that's kind of a way that I've been able to hold on. And I was going to share Ephesians 6:13, that sick t-shirt I gave you when I was up there in New Jersey. Put on the full armor of God, so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And for those watching, it's the helmet of salvation, breastplate of righteousness, sword of the spirit, shield of faith, belt of truth, and the shoes of the gospel of peace. That's the armor of God.
By the way, that's my favorite t-shirt.
I really appreciate you repping that too. When you do those Instagram lives, man, it's awesome. I'm like, yeah, it's so weird to like.
That's my going out t-shirt though. I got to tell you, that's like my good t-shirt.
Nice, man. It's just cool to see that, like, to think where all this started. And guys like you out rocking the shirt, like it's funny, man. It's like surreal. It's awesome. Kevin, plug your podcast one more time and tell our listeners how they can get in touch with you if you want to reach out to you.
Suffering Podcast, go to sufferingpodcast.com. All my social media, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, almost OnlyFans. No, I'm not on OnlyFans. You can go to realkevindonaldson.com. That's my website. It's every show that I've been on, every article that I've written, books where you can get books, so it's the TV shows that I've been on. Everything is there. That's like my digital resume, and it's got links to everything. So it's just realkevindonaldson.com.
And it'll all be here in the show notes here on YouTube and on the other platforms. Kevin, how do you feel about praying us out tonight, man?
Oh God. Didn't I tell you?
I know, that's why I did. I put you on the spot. You just said be courageous. I'll do it.
I'll limp through it.
All right, you got it, man. Don't overthink it.
All right, God. Listen, you've taken us down this long and winding road, and there's been times of doubt, and there's been times of retreat. But you've always shown us the way to move forward, and the way to move forward is putting one foot in front of the other. And why do we put one foot in front of the other? Because we want to succeed, not for our glory, but for your glory. Because one day, when the wheels stop turning, we're going to come up, we're going to meet face to face, and we're going to revel in your salvation and in your glory in heaven. I want to say thank you to Brother Steve for having me and being such a good friend in my life, because friends like him don't come around too often. But when they do, you make them known, and that's through your glory. With that being said, I want to say thank you, God. Thank you for everything in this world. Amen.
That was beautiful. Amen. Thanks for checking out the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast. Be sure to smash that bell. Subscribe to the channel. New episodes drop every week. Check us out on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcast. Kevin, this has been a blast, man. I've really
Thank you,
enjoyed
brother.
this. And thank you for having the courage to come on and share your testimony. I know you're going to inspire a lot of people. And it's fun to watch and see how God's working in your life. And it's an honor to call you a brother and a friend and a fellow warrior in Christ, man.
Feel the same way, brother.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you, brother. God bless.